There are rumors abound about Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, with the so-called Hollywood insider Jeff Snyder claiming that most of the work has been scrapped and that the film will likely see a 2027 release. The internet quickly panicked and overreacted before members of the Beyond the Spider-Verse crew stepped in to quell those rumors. And oh boy, Snyder is having one hell of a melty over on Twitter. But I think these rumors did stem from a real place and are worth talking about, because while I definitely think the whole scrapped narrative is very misinformed, I would not be surprised if Beyond the Spider-Verse did release in 2027. First off, just a PSA to everyone, literally everything Jeff Snyder has ever said should be taken with a grain of salt. Dude is wrong a lot. He has notoriously embarrassing meltdowns after people refute his claims, and these aggregator Twitter accounts just tend to post the headline cliff notes which cause panic. Yeah, the state of pop culture journalism is not great. But from what I've heard, the original plans for Beyond the Spider-Verse have substantially changed since Across, simply because Across the Spider-Verse changed so much over its production, which is pretty well documented. It's the reason Beyond didn't release at its initial release date, March 2024. So when people say much of it is scrapped, they likely mean the plans have changed substantially since both films were initially conceived together. But the wording implying that all the work they had done on Beyond has been scrapped is likely just a complete misunderstanding of the actual scenario. However, because Across the Spider-Verse changed so substantially, I don't think a 2027 release date would be that surprising, especially after the big expose on the animator's working conditions and crunch time in the last film. And in my opinion, that's actually a good thing. I know there was a big cliffhanger and everyone wants to see the next film, but the reality is that I just want the best film imaginable. I want them to deliver a satisfying and amazing conclusion to this trilogy. And I also want them to be able to make the film in a way that's exciting and innovative and groundbreaking. And the reality is that the animators cannot work under those same circumstances that they did in Across the Spider-Verse. It's just not acceptable. Now, I don't think you can get rid of people like Phil Lord and Chris Miller because they are the creative engine that drives this film. And to be fair, the workflow described in some of that expose is basically Lord and Miller's tried and true long-standing production workflow. They are always working and tinkering with things until the end of a production. And I personally don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is continuing that workflow when you have such limited crunch time and an explicit release date coming up. I think it should be fine for them to keep going back and changing and tinkering with things as long as they have the time to do that, so that these animators aren't working overtime, aren't working crunch time, aren't overworked, and aren't killing themselves in the workplace. And so not having a release date for Beyond the Spider-Verse, to me, is a good thing, because it means they'll be able to make this film the best they possibly can without the looming release date hurting the animators. Let's take a little bit of a look at some of Jeff Snyder's meltdown now. I think that it's pretty interesting, and there's a lot we can actually pull out of it. Movie was supposed to come out this past March. Now, I know there was a dual strike last summer, and animation takes a while, but if a big chunk of the movie wasn't scrapped and redone, then where is it? Why is it not on the calendar for next year? And I never ruled out 2026. I just said it's unlikely Sony would release Beyond and Spidey 4 in the same calendar year. Maybe Spidey 4 is 2027. I don't know, and never said I did know. That's the nuance of language. It's the aggregators who take it one step further and pretend they know. They don't know shit. They know what the studios tell them. That's it. Okay, Jeff. So here's the deal. If you had paid attention at all to the production of Across the Spider-Verse, you would know that it was still being made in the weeks leading up to its release. This is an infamous fact about the film. It had multiple versions of the film in theaters because of this. It is not a secret that the film changed substantially over the course of its production and looked a lot different than they intended it to when they initially wrote and conceived of the film. Now, let me ask you this. If the film was still being made in the weeks leading up to the release, at what point would they have been working on Beyond the Spider-Verse? It's very clear that Across the Spider-Verse just demanded way more time and attention than they expected, which is why that release date got pushed in the first place. Now, of course, they obviously did some work on Beyond the Spider-Verse, but I think that entire film's conception has changed because of how Across the Spider-Verse changed. That's all it is. They haven't gone back and scrapped a bunch of the movie. They just never got to it because of how Across the Spider-Verse Spider-Verse changed and demanded more of their attention. It's really not that complicated, and you're making it more complicated than it is, and you're embarrassing yourself by having a huge meltdown on social media. Chris Miller responded, "Nothing has been scrapped. The reels are coming along nicely." Jeff Snyder responded, "I'll explain tonight. Not my fault aggregators are stupid, Chris. You're just watching a big game of telephone play out on a massive scale. Any word on that release date?" This guy is very normal and not at all embarrassing. After Daniel Pemberton said that his report wasn't particularly accurate, Jeff Snyder sent this email to his representation. "Hi Ray, how are you? It's Jeff Snyder, the veteran reporter and former editor-in-chief of Below the Line. I was just wondering if Daniel Pemberton would be up for an interview since I saw that online he's feeling chatty about the next Spider-Verse movie. This would be for my newsletter, which has an audience of 25 million readers. Thanks for letting me know. Also, if you only have time to ask him one question, ask him this one. Daniel, did you actually read Jeff Snyder's newsletter before you shit on it? Or did you just read an aggregated headline on the internet that was taken out of context? Thanks, Ray." God, this guy is so insufferable. He's basically mad that he has a paid-for newsletter that not everyone pays for, and then that other sites are aggregating that information, which I understand, that is a problem. Discussing film-type Twitter accounts are doing nobody any favors by boiling everything down to the most scandalous headline possible. Everyone is taking what they're saying the wrong way. However, Jeff Snyder is having a complete embarrassing meltdown over something that he likely misunderstood. Now look, he might be right about the release date being 2027 or 2026. I thought at the earliest we would see it was 2025, and I thought that was maybe a bit ambitious. I'm expecting a 2026 or 2027 release for Beyond the Spider-Verse, and I understand why people might be upset that we have to wait so long, but I would much rather wait for a great finale than have them rush out something that is not satisfying. I think it's really embarrassing for this guy to just demand that everyone pays for his pay newsletter so that they don't get his information wrong. Just put the information out there. You're just desperate for people to pay for it. I understand commodifying the work you do. It's something I do myself. It's important. But if you want to clear up all of these misconceptions, then clear them up. Don't just say, pay for my thing and read it. It's not the same as telling someone to read an article if you have to pay to read it. All right, this one's particularly embarrassing. Also, the mere fact that Chris and Daniel felt the need to respond serves as proof that there was at least some truth to the story, because otherwise they could have just ignored it like they do the rest of the crap on the internet. But Hollywood can't ignore the insider, can they? Holy shit. Is this man not the most insufferable fucking man on Twitter? Incredible, honestly, incredible. It's performance art, Jeff, performance art. All right, that's really all I got to say. I think Beyond the Spider-Verse probably won't be released until 2026 or 2027, not because it's been scrapped, but because it takes so long for them to make these movies. They've innovated so much and they've changed so much over the course of the first film that it's just going to take a while, and I think that is reasonable. Given what they delivered to us in Across the Spider-Verse being so mind-blowing, I would love for them to take 3 more years and deliver us a similarly mind-blowing experience for Beyond the Spider-Verse. And that's all I gotta say, so goodbye.
I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny Two Cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.